Hello, welcome to this webinar on generating product texts with AI. It's great to see you all here. My name is Koos van der Mont. I am from Squadra Machine Learning Company. And over the next half hour, I will tell you all about this topic. Just a quick note. We have the opportunity for you to ask some questions in the chat. My colleague will keep an eye on them. And in that mode, I can answer right away. Otherwise, we'll circle back to them at the end. So go ahead and ask your questions. It's great to keep it a bit interactive. I'll share my screen now, and then we can dive into the presentation we've prepared. So we've laid out the agenda. A brief introduction about Squadra Machine Learning Company. Then we'll dive mostly into the impact of AI, starting with its impact on search engines like Google. And of course, the potential for using AI to generate product descriptions. Finally, we'll conclude with some practical tips when it comes to automatically generating product texts. And we assist in the application of data science and AI, mainly for suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers. And we put a strong focus on what we call smart product data management and AI commerce, meaning we look at how we can elevate product data quality using smart tools and ensure products are more discoverable and sell better. We've started this in the form of projects. That's how we began in 2017. But by now, we've also developed our own platform, a SaaS platform called PowerSuite, which primarily focuses on those two subjects. We're also part of the Squadra Group, and work for a really nice range of clients. Some of them include suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers. But we also work with platforms like Wall and standards such as GS1 or Ethem. You can see all the logos. So indeed, we are active in various fields. I'm going to speed through this because I've got a lot to cover. And I want to make sure we cover everything on time. Our PowerSuite is our solution to ensure high-quality product data across and on top of PM systems, e-commerce platforms, or ERP solutions. It consists of several modules: Power Class, Power Improve, Power Text, Power Relate. They all focus on improving product data. Now, with Power Text, we're also able to use AI to generate product descriptions. And that's mainly what we're going to discuss today. Not so much about the tool itself, but really about the whole development process. What's happening, the issues we're encountering, and how we've also solved them. All right, let's take a look at the impact of AI. As I mentioned earlier, there are actually two aspects to consider. I'd like to briefly touch on both of them. The first concerns the impact of AI on search functioning and the world of search engines like Google, which is, of course, the most widely used. Following that, we'll discuss how we can leverage AI to generate texts. Now, looking at the first point, let's do a quick poll, because I'd like to know if you're already using AI. So if everything's all right, so let me run a quick poll here. Have you used AI for generating product text yet? Well, not yet. Or have you started experimenting with it? Often you'll find that it's quite easy to create products using JTPT or Gemini or Cloud or another large language model to experiment with it and say, well, write a product description for a product with these features. And generally, yeah, you get quite a nice result. Or three, we're already using it at scale. So we're actually doing this for hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of products already at this moment. I'll give you some more time. I'll come back to the results shortly. The current situation is that 63% are in the second category, which means we've already done some experimenting. Well, there are a few, indeed about 15% who are already doing it at scale, and there are some 21% who haven't started yet. So essentially this somewhat aligns with the market perception I recognize. When talking to potential clients, and most have already dabbled a bit, and some, of course, are a step ahead in the process. Okay, let's move on. If we take a look back in time, I have pulled up a picture from 2022 showing what a Google search results page looked like back then. SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. So you see that I've searched for something, in this case, a USB stick. And indeed, I see the Google shopping ads. I see a regular ad. I see organic results. And there's a section on people also ask. And here's an explanation taken from Wikipedia. Well, I think we all remember this. It was 2 years ago. Everything was working just fine. And then towards the end of 2022, ChatGPT was released, and ChatGPT really shook things up. Why? Well, we all know it. I don't need to go into too much detail. It's a large language model trained on a vast amount of internet data. And yes, it can ask all kinds of questions. And it actually comes back with really good answers. You can also give it tasks like write a text. And while it comes back with that, it's happened incredibly fast. So in that respect, within 2 months, there are already over 100 million users of ChatGPT. Nowadays, it's impossible to imagine life without it, I believe. But it certainly caused some panic within Google, because actually, for several reasons, they were like, hey, suddenly there's GPT, which is actually more advanced than we are at Google. So, hey, we're apparently falling behind on a few things. But also because they said, hey, but wait a minute, if I use ChatGPT is a large language model that can answer questions immediately and accurately. So why would I use Google at all then? Well, that could actually be a potential risk that people might stop using Google. And as we all know, the search segment, along with the ads, the main cash cow, so to speak, of Google. So they thought, oh, wait, we have to respond to this. So they then released their own LLM. At that time, it was called BART, about half a year later. That was a bit unfortunate, a bit too hastily done. Didn't go over so well. A lot of errors and things that didn't add up. Later, they rebranded it to Gemini, which is now a lot better. So in that respect, they're now really back in the LLM game. Staying in step with what OpenAI is doing, but it was certainly a shock. And that's still somewhat the case. Because at one point, Microsoft said, hey, that's great. Now, as a partner of OpenAI, we also have access to that technology. Well, let's integrate that into our search engine, Bing. Well, Bing may not play a major role in the world of search engines, but they've certainly set the tone this time around. Say, for instance, I'm looking to buy a washing machine and want to know what to watch out for. Then I get not only the answers, but also links to pages where I can learn more. That's definitely on the path where Google was already headed. So that's certainly a development they've watched with great interest. There are actually more products doing this now, including ChatGPT itself, which has launched SearchGPT. What you can do there is search, and you'll immediately get an answer. In this case, I was searching for a specific type of product, and indeed I get links with it. I receive the notifications alongside it, so I get all that information myself. Thus, in a way, ChatGPT is becoming a bit of a Google in its own right. At the moment, it's only for the paid subscriptions. So it's not like all free users can use it, but that will likely change soon. And of course, Microsoft itself has now left Bing as a search engine, but has continued extensively with Copilot, which is integrated within the browsers. And there too, you can certainly search. I've got green deposits on my garden tiles. Well, it responds with an answer, including links. So if you click, you'll indeed see the product detail page with advertising options that come with it. So yes, you see, there's actually a whole new ecosystem developing around searching within such an LLM. And I don't know if you're familiar with Perplexity. Well, Perplexity.ai is a really nice search engine. And I've been using it for about half a year now, and I'm finding myself using it more and more. Almost as much as Google by now, I think, because it's a search engine that's really focused on those large language models. So when you indeed ask a question, in this case, about that green buildup on my table, I indeed get those answers neatly categorized with all sorts of links I can click through to. but also expanded with all sorts of information that might be interesting, such as how I can prevent it, not just how I can solve it. And I can also click through to a number of pages from there. Those pages indeed can be just regular usage pages. Pages are for products, in this case, again, screen deposits. Well, this essentially means that a new world has emerged where you need to make sure that you're not just reaching the top of search results on Google or a BNN, but you also have to ensure that you come out on top or get mentioned in the AI-generated answers. If you search in America or the UK, for example, what is the best month to go to Japan? Or say, you'll first see a result that is actually generated by AI. You see, I kind of lay it out myself. I get the answer straight away, along with some options to click through right there. Plus, we've got info about the featured snippets, something we always had, really. And of course, there's the people also ask section. So all of that remains the same, but the fresh aspect is this. You might be asking, what's the difference between a featured snippet and what we already had, like the best time to visit Japan? Here, the answer is also provided. The main difference is that this is actually drawn from one site. So this is basically what was considered the best answer on that site, and it's featured there. Whereas this is a combination from several sites. And generally, these kinds of answers can be more in depth and broader. I've said, well, I know a lot of things. I've taken this from there and that from over there, and I present it all as one single result. This isn't available in the European Union yet, nor in the Benelux or Netherlands, but it is in the UK. The reason is Europe has somewhat stricter regulations concerning AI. You see this with a lot of technological innovations. They want to consider it carefully before potentially attributing a certain claim to AI, to pin the blame on AI, but this is definitely something that will soon be coming to Europe. What does that really mean for searching? You actually see a number of changes with that, which are visible even now. Traditionally, searching on Google usually meant typing in a few keywords, hitting enter, and then getting your results. What we're actually noticing is that the way of searching, especially through the use of ChatGPT and other language models, is increasingly shifting towards a kind of prompt-based searching. So instead of searching with just keywords like work shoe, steel toe, you'll now phrase it more like, I'm looking for a work shoe with a steel toe, using full sentences. So it's shifting more towards full sentences, where people are increasingly expecting to get the right answer straight away. Short keywords will still be around for the foreseeable future. They're not going anywhere suddenly. However, you can see that increasingly there are going to be more of those kinds of queries where, well, I would expect a direct answer. And that's what you will start getting through search engines. And that means that a lot of websites are going to see a significant drop in the number of clicks coming from Google, simply because the answer is provided right away. So if you're in a business where you heavily rely on people looking for how-tos, how to do this or that, those types of questions, if that was essentially your main lead generator to your site, then you really need to rethink that, because you're going to get far fewer clicks from that in the future. Because it's also a new challenge, right? It's all well and good that I've invested a lot in SEO optimization over the past few years, but suddenly there's a new game to play, and I need to start featuring in AI-generated answers too. It sure is a different ball game. I've listed some characteristics here. In SEO, you primarily focus on those keywords, SEO keywords, high ranking. Your goal is essentially to get a click for them to come to your website. You aim to reach as high as possible, and that means your content tends to be longer, including plenty of keywords. Not too many though, because that's also penalized, but you're aiming to optimize as well as possible for that SEO ranking. While looking at appearing in those AI-generated answers, I've jotted this down here. It's been called GEO, not the best term, but generative engine optimization. What you see is that it greatly depends on the entire context. And so it's about ending up in those AI-generated answers in the hopes that people will then say, all right, let's have a closer look at that website. So it's really become a different game. How do I then appear in those answers? Well, in the end, and this is a bit of reassurance, actually 97% of those answers are based on the top SEO sites. So if you score high in the SEO ranking, then the chances are very high that you'll also be featured in those AI-generated answers. So we can still continue with the focus on SEO. However, we may need to change some things because it's not just about keywords anymore. It's really about the context. It's about the data. You need to start considering how to answer those longer queries, those extended prompts. That's essential when generating texts. Therefore, a tip when it comes to product texts is to really think about what answers we should provide for the questions people will be asking in search engines. So let's talk about the changes in this area. I thought it was important to mention them to not just focus on how we can generate product descriptions with AI. And now let's move on to that different yet related aspect. We can use AI for generating texts, and I will focus on commercial product descriptions, which are also necessary for e-commerce. So why is a product description really so important? So it might seem obvious, but let me give you some numbers. If you have a good product description, then you'll also be found in search engines like Google. Yes. And that's simply a major source for the flow of traffic to your webpage. So getting this right is pretty much a necessity. And what's really critical is that you have a unique text. As we probably know, when Google encounters a number of texts on the internet, those tend to receive a lower ranking because they're not unique. So it's crucial to have a unique text for your product description. Don't just copy the supplier's text because multiple parties might be using it. You must truly ensure you have a unique text. Secondly, good text simply leads to higher conversions. If you have a good description that's concise and attractively written, sort of a sales pitch, you'll see that people engage with it and the product becomes much more appealing. Around 80% of customers also do online research before they actually buy a product. Online or offline, 90% of customers in a Skyrocket survey have indicated that product content is incredibly important. And looking at what type of content is the most important, text product descriptions actually come out on top, even more so than reviews or images. And finally, if you're in a business where you regularly deal with returns, it's also very important that you have a good description. Because that means that customers will know what they're buying and there won't be disappointment when they receive it. And it can help to reduce returns. I'd like to do a little test with you. Here we have text from two hoodies. One was written with the help of AI and one was written by a person. I'd like to ask you to answer in a poll. Which one of these two texts do you think was actually written by a person, by AI? So the choices are now, text A is written by AI, text B is written by AI, both AI or both not. Those are options too. So I'm curious, I can see some of you are still making your choices. Most of you are now, or should I not reveal it yet? No, let's wait a bit longer and see what changes. Well, it seems there's a trend forming here. People are saying that text B was written by AI. Well, in this case, both were written by AI. So yeah, that was a bit of a trick question. By the way, 22% of people got it right. But in short, it's quite difficult to tell if a text is written by AI or not. Yes, that's quite the essence of it. I think if you ensure good inputs, which I'll get into in a moment, it is indeed possible to generate text that's almost indistinguishable from one written manually. Okay, let's pause right there. Yeah. What's important, of course, is that we may not distinguish it as people, and we can do a test and say, well, it's not visible, but how about Google? There's quite a concern, which I understand, that using AI to generate texts could have negative effects on our click-through rates and our SEO rankings. Indeed, that was the case at the beginning of 2023 as a response to the release of ChatGPT. Google said then that AI-generated content would be ranked lower. Yeah, then they themselves came out with BERT, later renamed Gemini, and ultimately they said, yeah, actually that's nonsense because it's very hard to detect, for one. And secondly, we've got our own engine to create that kind of content. So they've made it clear that it's not about whether content is AI generated or written by a human, it's ultimately about the quality. So they also wrote a blog post in early 2023. I've got a screenshot and the link here if you want to read it. In it, they say, okay, it's really not about whether something is AI generated or not, it's about the quality being good. So it means that the content has to be made according to the EEAT principle. If you're not familiar with it, just Google it because it's really something interesting to be aware of. It primarily revolves around relevant text that accurately describes the topic and provides information from a credible source. Those are the main guidelines they focus on. And they've also changed the wording, instead of helpful content written by people for people, it's been changed to helpful content created for people. Well, that just goes to show that it doesn't matter to us how it's generated as long as they're just good texts. That's definitely an important thing to know. Now, what's also crucial when thinking about AI-generated content, well, would you like to take a fresh look? Ensuring their success means that the content must be relevant and align with the search intent of users. It has to be original and unique, something I mentioned earlier as well. Yes, it has to provide a good summary about the product or topic in question. And that user engagement, well, it's nice if it comes from their own side. Where there's a lot of user traffic, where there's user appreciation, those are all factors that are considered. And of course, along with all the other SEO guidelines that you can always find from other disciplines, if you overdo it with keyword stuffing, stuffing your content with too many keywords, then you can end up with a lower ranking. So basically, the guidelines you use for writing decent texts also apply to texts generated by AI. But that doesn't mean everything will be smooth sailing because there are quite a few challenges. I've listed 5 here, and I'd like to go over these to show what the challenges are and how we deal with them in practice. The first challenge is scalability. With JTPT and Texima, it works beautifully. I can easily handle that. But if I have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 products, I'm obviously not going to copy and paste that 10,000 times. Hallucinations are a well-known issue. Generative AI sometimes makes things up. So how do you deal with that? With quality and uniqueness, how can you achieve that? Incomplete data, if I want to generate text for products, it's helpful to have all those characteristics. But what if I don't have them? What do I do then? And how do I handle SEO keywords and their synonyms? So as I said, let's take a quick look at what PowerText does and how it deals with these challenges. Firstly, scalability. What we can do is configure our PowerText solution to give certain instructions for each product category. There are 2 methods within PowerText. The first is the Gen AI method. And indeed, here I can specify for my data. In this case, for example, for washing machines, I want these features to be the most important. And I also give a profile where I provide instruction on, well, how my text should actually look. Yes, so I can configure this by category, which allows me to scale up for each category. And of course, there's also the option to automate product submissions. Yes, that delivers text like this, and I can perform both delivery in 2 ways. One way is via Excel input, and then I can, if I were to get started tomorrow, I wouldn't need an IT department, or I could go with an integration, an API integration with a PIM system or other systems. This means that the products added to it are automatically equipped with a specific text and then automatically returned to a PIM system. The configuration of what my text should look like and which features I find important, that's all done in bulk. The second issue is hallucinations, which you're likely familiar with by now, so no need for me to explain in detail. It's a challenging problem for generative AI, meaning that when I use generative AI methods, it would be wise to check the generated texts. And that's manageable if I have 100 texts. So if I have thousands or more, it becomes challenging. That's why we have another method within PowerText where we can work with what we call templates. So we say, okay, for a particular subject, like your washing machines, in this case, we have a specific layout. And within that layout, I can set various conditions and sentences. Those sentences can then refer to the product features, but I can be sure that as many products are generated, the right sentences are displayed with the right features instead of suddenly spouting all sorts of nonsense. Drafting these texts and setting these conditions can thankfully be done with AI as well. But the great advantage is that you have certainty beforehand about everything that could come out. This also means that the texts that are generated are essentially 100% correct, which is great if I need to generate tens or hundreds of thousands of them. There is a whole lot behind this I won't go into right now. And another important point, we're almost there. We've spent a lot of time looking into whether we can have AI perform those manual checks. So soon, we're not committing to a date yet. We'll be able to review the Gen AI output, spot any mistakes, and regenerate the content. That's an exciting new development, and there'll be more news on it shortly. When it comes to quality and uniqueness, how do you ensure you've got that covered? Well, with our solution, it's easy to declare, okay, I've crafted a nice template for a product description. Then with just one click of a button, you can get that done. Duplicate, so I can ensure that, for example, for a marketplace like Amazon or Bull, I get a different text, or perhaps I have multiple websites where I want to be on top, so I can make that happen too. With just a few clicks, I can make sure I have 2, 3, 4, 5 unique texts, and I can even generate it in another language. So my multilingual problem is also solved. And we also ensure very high quality because I can review those templates in advance. Additionally, if we have a text that's really good, but we want it to be unique, we can paraphrase it automatically. So we'll simply rephrase it using different words, a different structure, but conveying the same message. And ultimately, what we've seen recently is that we use fine-tuned LLM models. Now you see various developments in the market. Sometimes Claude claims they are much better, and at other times Gemini claims to be superior. Essentially, there is an ongoing development, and we just make sure that we have the best models behind the scenes, so you don't need to worry about that at all. As for the fourth challenge, incomplete data, we actually have 2 ways to address that within our entire Power Suite, one of which is Power Input. So we can say, okay, we first enrich the data, so we look at the image, we look at the title or the existing text, for example, that comes from the supplier. We look at the PDF, or even we look on the internet, and then we neatly extract all the features from there. This means that I can easily enrich my data that way, so I have a good setup to generate my text with. We can also utilize images. This is a new feature we've recently added. Essentially, without having any characteristics, or if it's very difficult, like with this teddy bear here, I can simply say, take this picture and create a nice text based on the guidelines we have set out, and it will generate a text from that. That's a really powerful feature, allowing us to sometimes include visual aspects from an image that aren't always present in the product features. I want certain words to appear, but they may have various synonyms. So I can include them in the generation process to ensure those different words come up, just to make sure I get found the best way possible. And we're also working on something that will come out in 2025, which is about automatically recognizing SEO keywords. So let's say for a washing machine, what's relevant? Well, the energy label, the wash capacity, certain frequently asked questions, so that we can include them automatically in the generation of those product descriptions. There are some exciting developments on the horizon and some that we've recently rolled out. Let's dive into some practical tips to get started today. Don't just put AI-generated content out there blindly. Consider what kind of questions users might ask when searching. Make sure your content answers those potential queries. So make sure you actually have an informative copy, because that simply ensures that people understand the product better, and so ultimately find the product better and are sure to buy it. We often talk about texts, and texts are super important, but at least as important are, of course, the other media. So images, videos. That's also something that gets included. And we also factor this into the AI-generated overviews. And it's part of that as well. Furthermore, don't worry if at times something doesn't work out right away. It's really about experimenting, getting into it, and seeing if you get the right results back. And of course, it also takes some time before everything is processed by Google. So yes, keep an eye on what Google is doing. We have a link here that we can share later, so you can at least see how it turns out. Well, we've reached the end here. I want to ask our final question. So now that you've heard this, are you indeed planning to start using it? I'll turn on that question too. I am very curious about your feedback. If you have any questions about this topic or that topic or your tools, please feel free to get in touch. So in that regard, we're more than happy to help out. Well, I see that most of you indeed say, well, I find it interesting, number one, to go and explore it further with, well, 2 and 3 on knowledge, and thankfully the last. Of course, there are very few people who think differently about that. All right, let's take a quick look at the chat. Well, I don't see any urgent questions at the moment. Looking at it, yes, there was a question about sharing the presentation. We will share the presentation. You will also receive an email with the link to the webinar, so you can also watch it again in the replay if you'd like. If you have any further questions, feel free to email us. No problem at all. Also, I have my contact information right here, so you can call me or email me if necessary. I hope you all enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you very much.